Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another game of Beyond No Reason. I hope you had very nice holidays and you had a nice Christmas with your family or wherever you were. Today we will be taking a look at a game of All That Glitters, uh, which I will be mentoring a player. I will be giving feedback on what he's doing wrong and right, and I think there's a lot to learn, but I'm not the best of the best, so if you think that something what I say is not correct, you can of course go try to find it on the official Beyond All Reason Discord server. So today, leading the blue team will be Sloth 1500 with 28 open skill and a silver tail. And on the opposite side of the map, we will have Better Strategy leading the red team with 29 open skill and silver chevrons. So the play we will be looking at today is Lebanon, I think that's what it's called, playing here in the eco position and starting off great with some metal in the bank, some energy, fairly decent wind speed, so going for those wind turbines and one solar is of course a very good start, I'd say. Makes sense, so you don't have to work to stalling to energy. You can see the wind speed dropping quite rapidly, but he is prepared. He has his energy storage, his solar panel, so he wouldn't have that big of a problem. The first unit being a constructor and handing it over to his teammate, a very nice move. If you haven't played Bar yet, you should know that teamwork makes a dream work, quite literally, because it's so important to always take care of what is happening. So two of these res bots were pumped out to reclaim metal, and I'd say it's a good move. I don't disagree with it, but usually what we see is one res bot from the pros, but I definitely don't have a problem. I think it's not a wrong choice. Yeah, so we can see Lebanon pumping out quite many constructors. 1, 2, 3, 4 constructors. What I'd like to see, yeah, is some build power, very nice indeed. Build power is one of the most essential things, I think, boosting that counter it to get maximum value. Now we are stalling a bit because wind is pretty low. It's about 2.5, and energy stalling is one of the biggest problems that you can have as an eco player, because of course you have to wait much longer for your buildings to actually how is it called, build themselves, well, get built. Now what could be done right here while Lebanon is reclaiming his lab is you can actually build some of those walls, armada walls, on the lab and self-D them, which will get the lab to about 11% or so, which means you will have the metal a lot quicker, so you can already start the T2 lab and then reclaim the 2 or 3% remaining on your T1 lab and do what you're doing really quickly, which is a small time saver, I'd say. So we can see all his constructors. What is weird about the play that we're seeing from Lebanon right now is that he hasn't gone to self-destruct his commander. We usually see that the commander goes down here and self-destructs, and then the Resbots go and take all the metal from him. But if you do that, a good move could be that you actually don't reclaim the whole commander, but you leave just 1 or 2% so that you can revive him later in the game. So yeah, I think not being able to have the metal to get this lab running quickly is something that really does hurt Lebanon right now. And also he does not have any kind of energy converter, even though he's overflowing energy, which is quite tricky. Maybe building one, yeah, you can see right here, building some of these a bit earlier would be the play with his commander. And still we do not have enough metal really to get a T2 constructor up and running very fast, and I think sending it to your teammate is not the best move. I think it'd be much better if you first had a T2 constructor for yourself, so that you can start building those T2 mexes and then start handing them over to your teammates. But we can see the Resbots doing a very nice job right here on the fronts, reclaiming whatever there is to reclaim, which is of course phenomenal for gaining metal, and I'd say it's a beautiful play. So he does hand out the first contractor. As I've said, I don't think that's the best move. We do also have an idle constructor right here. Another constructor being handed out. I don't think that's a play. I think taking this constructor right here, building your mexes, first priority, because you're the eco player, meaning that in the end of the day what you should be trying to do is getting your eco up as much as possible while helping your teammates, but helping your teammates is not your priority. It's a secondary task which you should do, but helping yourself is always the best idea, especially if you're going against one of the opponent's team best players. Better strategy, which is pretty much doing the same thing, but you can see I think his first constructor goes immediately into getting his mexes up and running. I do not know though if Lebanon does know who he is ecoing against. Indeed he does not, meaning that he couldn't really know, but you should try to get your own mexes up as quick as possible. Now we received a heavy transport from the airplane right here in order to transport the T2 constructor to the teammates on the right side of the map. Now that is a weird move, because if you look at the T2 constructor, you do not need the transport to be heavy, which it's not real heavy, it's like a medium transport. After the rework, the way they work is based on the metal cost, but it's basically a waste of metal spending so much to a Hephaestus. Yeah, instead of going into a light constructor, I think the difference is quite big. You can see 190 versus 74, almost more than double that. So yeah, I think that's another mistake that you need to take care of if you can. But basically, Lebanon is in a very decent spot at the moment. But definitely helping out with your commander right here to the build power would be phenomenal. Yeah, that's what I like to see. And maybe trying to give this constructor to someone who might need it if you don't want to use it. For example, there is a widget which uses a transport to automatically transport units to the lab queue, and it really does help so your units get to the front a bit quicker. Just a small detail, but it definitely is something that should not be ignored. Now, from what Lebanon knows, there already is T2 out on the field in form of gunslingers. We do know that it is not from the how's it called, the orange player, most probably, and we would either guess that it's this player, which is highly unlikely as we're seeing him right here, or it is actually the player back there, which is the eco player. So if you're seeing that the opponent eco player might be starting to pump out units, you should always assess the situation. If you think that you still have time to continue scaling, you should always try that. But if you think that our team might be in trouble, for example, like what is happening, the gunslinger is extremely powerful right here, maybe I should pump out 1 or 2 units. And especially if you still have your lab going, maybe a gunslinger or 2 wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. There's many different options. Also, one thing that you should consider is about the 11-minute mark, you should start thinking about making an anti-nuke. So if you have a perfectly timed nuke rush, it will take about 11 minutes for the nuke to be ready to launch. So I think it is really important to have an anti-nuke up at least 15 minutes, which is basically if you didn't exactly go for a nuke rush, but you still found a very nice way of making one. Now we can see a lot of those T1 energy converters right here. I think that's a bad play to do, especially if you have a T2 constructor. A T2 constructor can build the advanced energy converters, which are a lot more efficient. You can see 600 metal into 10.3 metal per second, while these turn 70 into 1 metal per second, meaning you're basically losing out on 1 metal per second by building the T1 instead of the T2. But from my experience, having that extra 1 metal per second over the course of a game can maybe not change the game directly, but you should always remember that Beyond All Reason is a game about scaling, which means that maybe that 100 metal you gained by building a more efficient building, you can later invest into something bigger and continue snowballing out of control. Now we're scaling very nicely right here with a lot of build power, and you can see the advanced energy converter. Yeah, I think it's very nice. Also, one thing you should consider doing is eating up the solar collector. It's pretty much useless and it's eating up space. What I like to do is, after some time, start reclaiming my buildings I have near my base, which are not that important, like wind turbines and solar collectors, because you can really need those resources. But we can see right now 69 and almost 2000 energy per second versus the red team's 51 and also about that energy mark. So we can see that clearly Lebanon has outscaled his red opponent and is continuing to do so. He's going in for that advanced fusion reactor, and I think you can see that at the moment your team is clearly winning the front. the right side front is being pushed very nicely. This front is not in a major disadvantage, so you should always continue to steal as a backline player, because you can see that there will be no problem in doing so. Now what we're seeing is that there's still no anti-nuke. First of all, you can never be too sure about when to make an anti-nuke. And secondly, I feel like we're kind of lacking build power. We have like TD1 constructors just standing around. One thing you can do if you want to really go into the late game is start building con turrets farms. So you would just make a square, you already plan ahead, and when you start going into that late game, you start building the APHIS from one side and the advanced converters from the other. So we can see he's starting to finish up the APHIS. Now the best play to do here is to build 4 advanced energy converters. The reason is that the APHIS produces 3000 energy and one of these consumes 600, meaning if you get 5 advanced energy converters, you will convert all the energy from the APHIS to metal. But what is a lot smarter is only building 4 of them, because you can absolutely go and get some the 600 energy will actually be energy. Now what I'm seeing is here an extreme amount of energy being leaked. Going into that second APHIS is an absolutely not terrible idea, I'd say, even because you can see that you are leaking so much energy and there is no reason to go for that second APHIS before you have finished your first one, and you're still leaking. As I've said, you need 4 advanced energy converters at least to have a logical ratio of metal you're getting. Now sharing this fusion reactor is very nice. Of course, you can see you're getting an anti-nuke up from the blue player. You might think that you're in a bad position right here as a eco player, because you see that the blue player already has 2 APHIS up, but it's really because he has that much more metal to his disposal. Look at all this metal extractors, while you only have 6 metal extractors. But as I was saying, you're still leaking a ton of metal by not having a nice amount of energy converters. Another thing I want to say is the layout. You still haven't reclaimed the solar collector, these wind turbines. They're all taking up space where there could potentially be more build turrets, and it's really hurting you, I'd say, because you have to build around and all this. Now let's dive in a bit into the front lines to check what is happening so we can evaluate how Lebanon should act. Right now we can see that we were pushed back. Everything was pushed back, and there's quite a problem right here because the right side is kind of crumbling, and it's quite concerning, I'd say. Yeah, I don't know, but this will definitely start looking concerning. When you see your friends being pushed by T1 spam or not really being able to defend it, you should start worrying about what you should do next. Now we're here, we're having our second APHIS, and we are having even more energy going to the team instead of going into our pockets in form of metal, which is terrible. You, and beyond our reason, especially as the eco player, you want to be as greedy as possible, and that kind of counteracts what I had said previously, but what it means is that in random games you are expected to protect the team from late game strategies, so you can't really afford having anything not going into your bank. I'm continuing to say that these spots are very nice construction spots and they're not being occupied, and even more AFIS are coming up. This one was handed out to the maroon player right here, but I don't think that's a problem. And maybe you know what? I think that is a problem. The team isn't in a really a situation where it's winning the front lines, where you can see, look at this, we are winning. For example, right here, the army value is a lot towards the red team, and we can see that it's pretty balanced out. Even though the economy is on our side, we do not know that, but the units we can clearly see. So handing out advanced fusion reactors is definitely not the most traditional play, maybe not a bad play, but I wouldn't recommend doing that in any basic game. And what we're seeing is that we're scaling to a point where, first of all, we cannot control energy at all. We do not have energy converters for basically anything. We're producing almost 10,000 metal, and we're only converting 1/3 of that, which is a horrible ratio. And what we should start seeing by now is T3. We have 3 of these aphises. T3 only needs about 1 to have a steady production of marauders going, meaning that if you have 3 aphises and you know that your opponent commander is not really doing anything else, you should definitely try and start making T3. I think the biggest issue at the moment that this player had is not making enough energy converters. Now, what we're seeing here is a very nice expansion, and do like this kind of grid. As I've talked before, it is very efficient. From one side you can do aphises, from the other side advanced energy converters. I don't hate this layout also, but again, these early game structures, all this needs to be reclaimed. It's taking up valuable space, and you can't afford that to happen. And there are also resources. As I've said, this 155 metal is something that can get you to snowball and out snowball your opponent. So what we're seeing is basically that our team is pushing, and we're still continuing to scout. Here we go. The experimental gantry coming up. By now I think we should know where every opponent player is. Pretty much we do, I'd say. Oh, we're almost. We can expect that the red player and the red player is somewhere in here, because we remember that the brown player was right here, and we're clearly winning the fronts. So maybe what we should do right now is getting T3 lab up and continuing to the push, so we can pretty much end the game right here if we have T3 units. I can't continue to say how important it is to have these advanced energy converters going. Basically half of the energy that Lebanon is producing is going away. It's not efficient at all. And because you're German, I'd say it even more. As a German, you have the name to be efficient, so Keep in mind, per Aphis you want to have at least 4 energy converters, if not 5 if you want all of it to be turned to metal. But it's really important, because what we're seeing is basically the blue team not being ready to convert all this very nice energy to metal. And we're starting up this lab, which is very beautiful. You can see the red team is actually pulling out a resign vote, and I think by 1 they actually do not get it. I don't remember if this game was actually won or not. I did look at it. It seems like it is. But really what is happening, I think it was a very nice play from Lebanon, even though he did not really do anything in that match. But you should always remember that as the eco player, what is happening is that basically you're supposed to protect for the end game. You're supposed to be ready for that and not for anything before that. So maybe scaling this much was not a mistake, but here my problem is like this Vanguard. I don't think it's the best of choice. Maybe instead going immediately for that Razorback would be the play. But I think the game is basically won right here. Just pumping out, yeah, T3 units. Oh, and we're still leaking more energy. Yeah, sorry, but I'd say that if there were 2 things I'd like to point out before this game ends, I think sooner or later, what Team Ship is on. See that in a bit, I think. Yeah, I think it was a very good job from Lebanon. Definitely did a good, yeah, we can see the game ends. So what I wanted to say, it's 2 things that I want to definitely talk about is, first of all the energy that is leaking. You basically never want the energy converter usage to get exactly 100%. You only want it to be a little bit less than that, maybe like 70 or 80%. And also this space, the middle space, sorry, the middle space right here, it should be cleaned up, reclaimed by the Kong turrets. This shouldn't be here, should be space for more construction turrets. Now let's look at the graphs and maybe look at what could have been done better. Let's go to metal produced. Lebanon had the most metal produced. No, he did not have the most metal produced from the whole team. He had the almost 4th metal produced, and one reason is because he had that big amount of metal not being converted, that big amount of energy. And yeah, you can see here the second in energy production, and the blue player was just a very good player and had a lot of maxes, that's why he has more energy produced. But really you can see that it doesn't really match up the energy produced with how much metal you've produced. So I'd say that overall pretty good job. We can also look right here, energy produced. He started off pretty great and ended up in a decent spot, but metal produced, of course, he didn't scale as well. So look at the difference. Energy access, no. Yeah, you can look at this chart. This is how much energy was sent over. Huge chart. You do not want this to happen, especially as an eco player. This is not how it should happen. You want it to be low, and that's the reason this was basically my report and my review on the game. Thanks a lot for watching and hope you have a nice weekend. See you!